Hi everyone and welcome back. You're watching The Money Show on ET Now. Well, this morning we had the Prime Minister unveiling the transparent taxation platform. It brought about with it three very interesting things. Firstly, we had the faceless assessment. Secondly, faceless appeals. And thirdly, a taxpayer's charter. So what exactly is the significance of all of this and why is it important? We are going to be discussing all of that with Preeti Khurana. She's the chief editor with Clear Tax. Preeti, lovely having you back with us on The Money Show. Let's start off first with the significance of this taxpayer's charter. What exactly does it mean, for the taxpayer?
Right. The government comes out, the tax department, the tax charter. It has done so.
Okay, there just seems to be a bit of, a connection problem, I guess, with Preeti. I guess internet speeds are still a bit slower than we would have liked. Can't wait for 5G to come by. But yeah, just to reiterate for our viewers, faceless assessment, which means that you do not really need to go meet your income tax officer. You do not need to go walk over to your respective income tax wards to sort out the matter. If in case there's any notice that is sent to you, if there's any scrutiny notice that the tax department sends you, it will all be done electronically. Even your reply will have to be sent electronically to the department. So basically, neither the assessing officer knows who you are, or rather he or she does not meet you in person, and nor do you need to go and meet the assessment officer. Not to mention, of course, since everything is electronic, it enables speedy completion as well. Faceless appeals too, I guess the benefits do stand the same. But yes, I think Preeti Khurana has been able to join us back. Preeti, we were talking about the significance of this taxpayer charter for taxpayers.
Yeah, right. So, what I was trying to say was that the income tax department usually comes up with a taxpayer's charter. We had one a couple of years back, quite a few years back. And this charter is basically, it's the vision of the government, is the vision of the department around what kind of services they want to offer to taxpayers, certain commitments, that they are making to the taxpayers, such as, they're going to provide accurate information, they will maintain confidentiality, it will be a fair system, and make efforts to reduce cost of compliance. So basically laying down a very broad vision of the tax department that it intends to follow in all the assessments, in all the compliance efforts that they're going to undertake. And the charter also has a few do's for the taxpayers, where they are expecting taxpayers to be honest, to be compliant, and most importantly, the charter says that taxpayers need to be aware of who their representative is. So one has to be informed. Ignorance is not considered acceptable when you're dealing with the tax department. So one has to be informed and one has to be aware about the kind of actions their representative is taking in case your tax returns are being filed to a representative, because ultimately the onus of accurate compliance is on the person itself, not the representative. So these are some kind of guidelines that have come through, a commitment that the tax department has placed. And of course, like you rightly said, there's going to be faceless assessments, which are already in place since 2019, somewhere in the end of 2019 is when they launched faceless assessments. They're also going to do faceless appeals, and that will be interesting to watch. It's a big project, so let's see how that comes through.
Okay, so like you mentioned, there was a taxpayer charter a couple of years as well. Does this, charter essentially make, the entire tax environment more friendly for the taxpayer? A more conducive environment for the taxpayer, according to you, based on what all has been mentioned as, the duties of the department towards the taxpayer and the taxpayer's responsibilities as well?
Absolutely. If you look at it in terms of policy setting, in terms of what it aims to achieve, it's definitely in place. It's I think the vision of our Prime Minister and the rest of the tax department who have been working hard. We've seen some great progress. We've seen e-verifications. We've seen faster processing of tax returns. Refunds have become much more smoother. And if you see, nearly 99% of all tax returns are now filed online. So in terms of it being a policy document, it's everything is in place. But I think the key lies in its implementation. So what we really need to watch out for is how much in spirit, in reality, on ground tax administration is impacted, is changed, and evolves because of this charter. So I think that will come through, as all of these faceless attempts take place. Let's see how this goes for the taxpayer on the ground, for tax practitioners who have to deal with tax departments who are handling, large businesses who have large cases in their hands. It's more relevant for them as to how this really impacts, assessment orders that are passed and what is the on-ground reality. I think that we've only come to know in the coming months and years.
All right. Now, faceless assessment, Preeti, it was a concept that was introduced by the finance minister, I think, the last couple of months. In fact, it's already in practice. There have been a couple of assessees as well, and chartered accountants represent gone through the faceless assessment procedure. What's your take of how it has essentially panned out? What maybe the government had in mind in practice when you're actually implementing it, if there are any challenges that are in place. And what's new in this transparent taxation platform that is being offered, in terms of faceless assessment?
Right. So, faceless assessments, like you said, is already going on for, they released some numbers also saying around 7,000 assessments have been done online. So just to understand what this is all about is that basically it's aimed at keeping the identity of the tax officer unknown to the taxpayer. So the taxpayer effectively interacts with, say, a system or the department which is the front face, and whoever is the tax officer is not known to the taxpayer. The tax may be based out of say another city, the order may be passed somewhere else, and information around the taxpayer is known to perhaps even a team in the tax department. So that could be possible that a team is handling the entire assessment. Physical visits are not required. So, the main idea here is to stop any kind of harassment and to remove the kind of territorial jurisdictions that, tax officers have, the kind of influence they may tend to exercise if they are handling a certain jurisdiction. So that they've tried to remove. They've tried to allot cases, randomly through some logical analytics, so that you do not know who your tax officer is. And the experience so far has been good. Taxpayers, even those who are dealing with the tax department completely online. Say, for example, you receive a notice, you can access it online, you can respond to that notice online, and you can even upload documents online. And the complete process may take place without you coming face to face with the tax officer, without you even knowing who your tax officer is, and not having to make a physical visit to the department. So I think that has happened successfully for quite a few taxpayers. The experience has been good, except in situations where you are uploading, you want to share more information and you have a huge set of documentation that you need to sort of support your claims with. I think a couple of those, have had certain issues, but largely speaking, this has been a brilliant exercise. It has been quite effective in ensuring that taxpayers are not unnecessarily harassed. And it's the digitization efforts of the government. Communication is completely electronic, no personal visits, and that's definitely going on well so far. Now, when this extends to a large number of taxpayers, is when we will be really able to see the system and how it's working. So we are looking forward to that.
Faceless appeals. Now, this is something that was not, put in place so far, but appeals. correct me if I'm wrong, Preeti, but that's a different ball game as well, because it's essentially, it perhaps would require more documentation, it would require more correspondence. Do you anticipate faceless appeals to be a bit more trickier than faceless assessment?
Absolutely. Faceless appeals is going to be a lot more challenging, where the finalization may be taking place in another city. Somebody may be hearing your case, or somebody may be reviewing your case in a completely offline sort of mode, in a non-physical format. And such a person may not have access to all the information that you want to present, and all the documentation that you want to see. But the flip side also is that tax officers may then, be able to really hone their skills when they have access to taxpayers from around the country. So both the aspects will exist. What they are proposing is that all appellate decisions will be team-based. So a team will be sitting and reviewing all the orders. They will be looking at all the appeals, and decisions may actually be taken collectively. So I think the main idea that they want to put through is that this does not become an officer focused, focused and a non interface kind of real interface, human interface kind of exercise. But this is going to be extremely challenging in the sense of how large some of the information that one wants to share and the kind of communication that one wants to do with the tax officer. So as we discussed, the key lies in the implementation and the reach of this effort. So how many taxpayers can be impacted, how many notices, how many appeals can be disposed of in such a manner. That will be the real test of this particular vision of the government.
All right. Well, we've got a couple of questions and queries lined up, so let's get straight to that. First up, Prafulla Khobragade has written into us saying, I received a notice asking me to explain certain income for AVA 18-19. Now he wants to know if this can be will this be transferred to the faceless assessment processes and SOPs. He says he has personally already had a few hearings regarding the case now, but I mean, I would assume that, because of the social distancing measures in place, maybe the hearings have reduced or have not happened in the last couple of months. So, yeah, Preeti, what's the status when it comes to previous cases, which may be held physically, the hearings will be held physically, but do they all now get transferred to the electronic mode of, communication?
That's what the tax department is trying to do, is move all of these to the online mode, and they've actually selected a couple of cases that they want to dispose of in a faceless fashion. Ideally, if he's received any notice, it should appear on his login. When you log into the income tax department website, you will be able to view every kind of notice that has been sent to you. You can view the progress, and you can request for online meetings. So all of that is happening, but it really depends on where his jurisdiction is, and what is the progress that has been made in the case, and what are the interactions that have been happening with the tax officer. So it will be difficult to comment, but if you want to move this to a faceless assessment, you can definitely put in a request to your tax officer, and I'm sure that will be considered. You can keep reviewing the status online. That has been done for most cases that are ongoing, and some cases have also been specifically picked up, and they will be closed very soon in the couple of in the coming months. So it could be either of these, but if this is something that you want to do, then I would request you to visit your tax officer, make a request, or drop in a communication and request that this be considered in a faceless fashion.
Okay, all right. Well, I hope that's helped you out with your query. Let's move on and take on board our next question. It's coming in from Vimal Sharma. He says, my father invested in some ELSS schemes as first holder, and our writer is the second holder. This was during FY17 and FY19. However, he expired due to old age in April 2020. However, since he is the second holder, he wants to transfer the units in his name by registering himself as, of course, now the sole holder or the single holder right now. That will be in August 2020. Now he wants to know would the 3 years of the lock-in period, which is required to claim tax investments, to claim tax exemptions or deductions, would they be counted from the date of investment, that's in FY17 and FY19, or would it be from the date of transfer to his name, that's in August 2020? And also, in case of redemption of units after the transfer in his name, he wants to know what's the tax implications. Good question, Preeti. What's your understanding of the law when it comes to Vimal's case?
So in terms of legal aspects with regard to inheriting these ELSS or shares, whatever these are, I'm assuming that you've taken the due legal process. You are the legal heir, and you have been able to get ownership of these ELSS funds into your own name, either because you were a nominee or because these have been willed to you. So let's not touch upon those legal aspects. Assuming all of that is in place, and now you are the rightful owner, the legal owner, the inheritor of these ELSS funds. Remember that whenever you decide to exit, the period of 3 years will be counted from the date these were first held by your father. So we will consider the date in FY 17-18 or whatever date the purchase was made. So 3 years will be calculated from such date, and the lock-in will be for these 3 years, starting from the date of ownership by your father. Now coming to the tax incidence, now that you are the inheritor, you are the owner of these shares, tax will have to be paid by you. So you'll have to calculate long-term capital gains tax on equity. So if you hold any equity-related instruments beyond a period of 12 months, those are considered as long-term capital gains. ELSS have to be mandatorily held for 3 years. So these are going to be long-term capital gains. You have to calculate them, reduce the cost price from the same price, and whatever balance you get, if it exceeds rupees 1 lakh, you will have to pay 10% tax on it. So that's around the tax laws. Calculate your gains, see if it exceeds the threshold of rupees 1 lakh, and if it exceeds, then you have to pay 10% tax. It has to be paid from your own pocket, but you will be allowed to consider the date of purchase originally, which is the date on which your father had bought these shares.
All right. Well, there you have it. And I think this would perhaps be valid for a lot of our viewers as well who may be in a similar dilemma as Vimal. Well, Preeti, on that note, we let you go. Thank you so much for, as always, patiently answering all our viewer questions and queries, and of course, helping us understand what this transparent taxation platform has to offer for all of our viewers who are also taxpayers. We will take a very short break right here on the show, but when we return, especially for all small business owners, here is an insurance option that you can purchase as a group cover for your employees. Don't go anywhere.